All right, so are you ready to dive deep today?
Let's do it.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Today, we are going to tackle the Vancouver housing market in 2025.
Oh boy.
Think of this as like your crash course in becoming a Vancouver real estate expert.
I like it.
We've got some fascinating data from nesto.ca,
Okay.
which is a Canadian digital mortgage lender.
All right.
And trust me, there are some real surprises in here.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
For example, did you know that despite Vancouver's reputation for like crazy high prices,
Yeah.
the average home price actually went down last year?
It's true.
Yeah.
It might seem a little counterintuitive,
Right.
but there's a lot more to the story than
Exactly.
meets the eye.
So today we're going to unpack all the trends, all the
Yeah.
jargon,
Love it.
and just like figure out what it all means for you,
Yeah.
whether you're looking to buy or sell or just stay informed.
Stay informed. That's a good one, too.
Right.
A lot of people just want to
Absolutely.
know what's going
Just
on.
want to kind of have their ear to the ground.
Yeah.
So Nestor.ca reported that the average home price in Vancouver settled at $11,172,100 in November 2024.
Wow.
That's a 0.9% decrease year over year.
Interesting.
But here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
This overall trend doesn't tell the whole story.
Right, because different types of homes are actually behaving quite differently.
Okay, I like this.
Yeah, so for instance, single-family homes saw a 1% increase in price,
All right.
while townhouses and multiplexes actually rose by 1.8%.
Wow.
Condos, however, dipped by 1.2%.
Ah,
So you can see how just looking at the overall average might not be painting a full picture.
it's like looking at the forest instead of the trees.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got these varied price trends.
Yes.
But then Nesto.ca also reported a huge surge in sales in November 2024.
Really?
A 28.1% increase year over year.
Wow.
What's going on there?
Well, that surge suggests there's still a really strong appetite for Vancouver real estate,
I like it.
even with the high prices. And to really understand this dynamic, we need to look at something called the sales to new listings ratio, or SNLR.
Catchy.
Think of it as a measure of market temperature.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Break it down for me.
So imagine this. 100 homes are listed in Vancouver,
Okay.
but there are 150 buyers who are actively looking.
Okay.
That high demand pushes the SNLR up
Right.
and creates what we call a seller's market.
Got it.
On the other hand, if there are 100 listings and only 50 buyers,
Right.
that's a lower SNLR, and it signals a buyer's market.
Okay.
Now, in November 2024, Vancouver had an SNLR of 59%,
Okay.
which points to a balanced market,
Interesting.
where neither buyers nor sellers have a huge advantage.
That's super helpful.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about the price.
Right.
It's also about like how many people are vying for those properties.
Exactly. How competitive is
Yeah.
it out there?
So even though prices dipped slightly overall,
Uh-huh.
this balanced market suggests things could shift quickly, especially with the low mortgage rates we're seeing.
Absolutely. Lower mortgage rates make buying more attractive,
Right.
which can increase demand and
Right.
potentially push prices upward.
Yeah.
It's a real balancing act.
Okay, so we've talked about the buying side.
Yes.
But what about renting in Vancouver?
Okay.
Is it as expensive as everyone says?
It's definitely not cheap.
Right.
But even the rental market has seen some surprising shifts.
Interesting. Okay.
In November 2024, the average rent actually decreased by 9% year over year,
Wow.
settling at $2,888.
I'm honestly shocked.
Yeah,
I was expecting some astronomical figures.
right. It's still expensive,
Yeah.
but that is a pretty big drop.
Yeah, it is.
What types of rentals saw the biggest changes?
Yeah, what were we looking at?
So one-bedroom apartments had the most dramatic decrease,
Oh, right.
falling by 12%.
Wow.
Bachelor and two-bedroom apartments weren't far behind,
Okay.
both dropping by 11%.
Huh.
So if you're looking to rent in Vancouver, this might be a good time to explore those options.
Explore those options, right?
Especially if you're trying to decide between renting and buying.
Right.
It's important to see the full picture.
Right, because Nesto.ca provided some interesting calculations
Yeah.
to compare those two.
Uh-huh.
Based on their current mortgage rates, they estimate that for every $100,000 in mortgage balance,
Okay.
you'd be looking at roughly $533 to $544 per month.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
it's a good starting point for figuring out what makes sense for your budget
Yeah.
and your long-term goals.
But remember, those mortgage costs can change as interest rates fluctuate.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, we did touch upon some expert opinions earlier.
Yes, we did.
What are the pros saying about Vancouver's market outlook for 2025.
What are they saying?
So Nestor.ca pulled in some insights from Andrew Less.
Okay.
He's the Director of Economics and Data Analytics at GVR.
All right.
He basically confirmed that the Vancouver market is balanced right now, but suggested that we might see some price increases in 2025,
Interesting.
particularly for high-demand properties like townhouses and detached homes.
Okay. His perspective is interesting because while the overall average price decreased,
Right.
Les is saying we can't rule out price increases in certain segments of the market.
So that slight dip in average home price might just be temporary,
Potentially.
especially if demand keeps rising.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to look beyond the headlines and really understand the nuances of the market.
I love that.
Yeah.
Look beyond the headlines.
For instance, Liss emphasized that the balance between new listings and demand will be a major factor in determining price fluctuations.
It all comes back to supply and demand.
Classic.
But what about affordability?
Right.
Vancouver still holds the title for the most expensive market in Canada.
It's true.
What are people who are struggling with affordability supposed to do?
Yeah, well, Les acknowledged that affordability is a huge challenge in Vancouver,
Okay.
and he offered a couple of practical suggestions. He mentioned that condos might be a more accessible option for some buyers,
Okay.
or exploring suburban areas within the greater Vancouver area could open up possibilities.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
So maybe instead of focusing on that dream detached home in the heart of Vancouver,
right.
buyers could consider condos or look at nearby communities with more affordable options.
Exactly. It's about being strategic and understanding that the Vancouver market isn't monolithic.
Right.
There are different pockets of opportunity if you know where to look.
Okay, so we've got a balanced market potential for price increases in certain segments
Huh?
and affordability challenges.
Yes.
What are the key takeaways for our listeners?
What should they be watching?
Yeah, what should they be paying attention to?
Well, Nestor.ca highlighted 3 major forces shaping the Vancouver market.
Okay, let's hear it.
Low housing supply,
Okay.
increasing demand,
Yeah.
and those declining mortgage rates.
Right.
These are the factors that will continue to drive the market story in
Right.
the coming months and years.
It sounds like the Vancouver market is a bit of a puzzle with all these interconnected pieces.
It is, but that's what makes it so interesting, right?
Absolutely. And that's why having access to data and expert insights can be so valuable
Couldn't agree more.
for navigating the market,
Yes.
which is exactly what we're trying to do here today.
That's what we're here for.
But one thing that really stood out to me from Nesto.ca's findings
Mm-hmm.
is that even in notoriously expensive Vancouver,
Yeah,
the average home price actually went down.
it's surprising.
It makes you wonder what's in store for 2025.
It does raise some interesting questions, and that brings us to a crucial point for our listeners to consider.
Okay.
With the potential for price increases on the horizon, could this balanced market shift towards a seller's market?
That's a great question because if that happens, buyers might face stiffer competition.
For sure.
Maybe even those bidding wars we've heard so much about.
Precisely. And a seller's market could drive prices even higher, making affordability even more of an issue.
So based on everything we've discussed today,
Yeah.
what are the chances we'll see that shift to a seller's market?
Well, predicting the future of the real estate market is a tricky business.
I imagine.
But based on the data and insights from Andrew Lies, it's certainly a possibility.
Okay.
The key factor to watch will be the balance between new listings and demand.
So if more people want to buy than there are homes available, we could see prices climb.
Exactly. And if mortgage rates remain low, that could fuel demand even further.
Yeah.
It's a complex equation with a lot of moving parts.
This is why I love these deep dives. We can take complex information like this and make it understandable.
To break it down.
But what about our listeners who are actually thinking about buying or selling in Vancouver right now?
Good question.
What advice would you give them?
First and foremost, do your research.
Yeah, okay.
Don't rely on headlines or gut feelings.
Right.
Take the time to understand the trends in your specific neighborhood.
Okay.
And for the type of property you're interested in, don't be afraid to get granular with your analysis.
Right, because the Vancouver market is so diverse.
It is.
What's true for one neighborhood might not be true for another.
Exactly. And this is where working with a local real estate agent can be invaluable.
Yeah.
They have their finger on the pulse of their specific areas
Right.
and can offer insights that you won't find in those broader statistics.
And for those data enthusiasts out there, like myself,
Yes.
Nesto.ca provides detailed reports that break down those trends by housing type.
Wow.
They even have historical data.
Oh, wow.
which is great for spotting patterns and trying to anticipate what might happen next.
I love that they offer that level of detail.
Yeah.
It empowers both buyers and sellers to make more informed decisions.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have?
Price trends, sales activity,
Right.
the rental market expert predictions,
Mm-hmm.
and even those pros and cons of renting versus owning.
Yes.
Are you feeling like a Vancouver real estate whiz yet?
I'm getting there.
I hope so. And more importantly, I hope our listeners feel empowered to make informed decisions
Yeah.
about their real estate journeys.
It's all about making informed decisions.
Absolutely.
Right.
But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
I want to circle back to that comparison of renting versus owning.
Okay.
Nesto.ca's breakdown of the monthly cost of a $100,000 mortgage balance was really helpful.
It is a helpful starting point,
Yeah.
especially for people trying to decide if it's the right time to buy.
Right.
But remember, those costs can change as interest rates fluctuate.
Oh, that's right.
Even a small shift in rates can impact your monthly payments.
And Nesto.ca mentioned that a 0.25% change in Canada's policy rate could affect your mortgage payment by $14.13 for every $100,000 borrowed.
Yeah, so it's not just about the initial cost,
Right.
but also considering potential changes down the line.
So we've covered a lot of ground.
Yes, we have.
Price trends, sales activity, the rental market expert predictions, and even the pros and cons of renting versus owning.
right.
But before we move on to the next part of our Vancouver deep dive,
Okay.
there's one final thought-provoking question I want to leave our listeners with.
Ooh, I like it. Let's hear it.
If Vancouver manages to maintain this balanced market we've been discussing,
Yeah.
do you think it could become a more attractive option for people who have been priced out in the past?
That's a great question.
Could this be a turning point for affordability in Vancouver?
That's a fantastic question. It gets at the heart of the affordability challenge that Vancouver has been facing for so long.
Right.
If prices stabilize or even dip slightly, it could open doors for people who have been dreaming of owning a piece of this beautiful city.
Yeah.
But of course, there are other factors at play, like interest rates, inventory levels, and economic conditions.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers, but it's definitely something worth exploring further.
Definitely.
And maybe in our next deep dive, we could look at those success stories.
I'd love that.
Those people who were able to enter the Vancouver market against all odds.
I love that idea because at the end of the day, real estate is more than just numbers and trends. It's about people, their lives, and their dreams.
Beautifully said. All right, we're going to take a quick pause here, but when we come back, we'll continue our Vancouver housing market deep dive with even more insights and analysis.
Awesome. Can't wait.
Stay tuned.
I'll be here.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Vancouver housing market.
We're back!
I'm still thinking about that question we left you with.
Oh, yeah.
Could a sustained, balanced market make Vancouver more accessible to those who've been priced out in the past?
Yeah, it's a fascinating thought.
It's a fascinating thought.
And it brings up another point from Nesto.ca's data that I found particularly insightful.
Okay.
They broke down the average price trends by housing type, remember?
Yeah. We saw that single-family homes and townhouses were actually up,
Right.
while condos saw a dip.
Exactly. And if we think about those who are struggling with affordability,
Right.
condos might become a more realistic entry point into the market if that trend continues.
That's a great point. Instead of immediately aiming for that classic detached home focusing on condos, could be a smart strategy for some buyers.
Yeah, for sure.
It's all about adapting to the market's dynamics.
Being flexible.
Speaking of which, I keep thinking about that sales to new listings ratio,
Uh-huh.
that SNLR.
Right.
It feels like a key indicator for understanding what's ahead.
It really is. And remember, even in a balanced market, like Vancouver's prices can still fluctuate.
Right.
It's not a static situation.
Of course.
The SNLR can give us clues about which direction things might be heading.
So even though the average home price dipped slightly last year, that doesn't mean every single home in Vancouver decreased in value.
Right. It's an average. So some properties may have gone up in value while others went down.
Okay.
It all comes down to those hyper-local factors.
Right.
Location, property type, the condition of the home.
Which is why having that granular neighborhood-specific knowledge is so important.
Absolutely.
It's not enough to just look at the citywide trends.
And this is where working with a local real estate agent can be invaluable.
Right.
They have their finger on the pulse of their specific areas and can offer insights that you won't find in those broader statistics.
And for those data enthusiasts out there like myself,
Yes. Yeah.
Nesto.ca provides detailed reports that break down those trends by housing type.
I love that.
They even have historical data,
That's awesome.
which is great for spotting patterns and trying to anticipate what might happen next.
I love that they offer that level of detail. It empowers both buyers and sellers to make more informed decisions.
Okay, before we wrap up our Vancouver deep dive,
Hmm?
one last question that's been on my mind.
Okay.
Do you think this balanced market will last?
Oh, good question.
Or is it just a temporary calm before things potentially heat up again?
Ah, the million-dollar question.
Right.
It's impossible to predict the future with certainty.
Of course.
But based on the factors we've discussed, low supply, increasing demand, and attractive mortgage rates, I think it's reasonable to anticipate some price increases, particularly in those high-demand segments.
So the Vancouver housing market is still a bit of a wild card.
It definitely keeps us on our toes.
It does.
And it underscores the importance of staying informed, doing your research, and assembling that team of trusted professionals to guide you.
Right.
Whether you're buying, selling, or just keeping an eye on the market, knowledge is power.
Well said. And speaking of knowledge, Nesto.ca deserves a shout out for providing the data and insights that fueled our deep dive today.
Absolutely, they're a fantastic resource.
Be sure to check out their website for a wealth of information and resources on the Canadian housing market.
Absolutely. They offer fantastic tools and expert advice that can be incredibly helpful, whether you're a seasoned investor or a first-time buyer.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a new and fascinating topic. But before we sign off for today, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yes. What resonated with you most about the Vancouver housing market? What surprised you? What are you still pondering? We're always eager to continue the conversation.
So feel free to share your takeaways and questions on our social media channels. Until next time, stay curious. Welcome back to the deep dive.
Back for more.
As we wrap up our exploration of the Vancouver housing market, I'm struck by how dynamic it all is.
It really is. Yeah.
It's not just about numbers. It's about people making decisions, adapting to change, and pursuing their dreams.
You hit the nail on the head. We've been talking about averages and trends, but behind every data point is a human story.
Right.
Someone deciding to buy their first condo,
Right.
a family upsizing to a townhouse, or maybe someone downsizing as they enter a new phase of life.
It's a reminder that real estate is deeply personal.
Yeah.
And it's interwoven with our aspirations and life choices.
Our hopes and dreams.
And speaking of personal choices, we talked a lot about buying and selling.
Yes.
But I want to circle back to the rental market for a moment. It seems like there might be some hidden opportunities there,
Yeah.
especially with those significant rent decreases we discussed earlier.
I think you're right. Those rent decreases could be a game changer for some people, especially if they're feeling priced out of the buying market.
Right.
It might be a good time to reconsider renting, at least in the short term.
It's like hitting the pause button
Yeah.
and reevaluating your options.
Take a breath.
Maybe renting for a while allows you to save up a larger down payment or explore different neighborhoods without the commitment of ownership.
Exactly. Renting offers flexibility, and in a market as dynamic as Vancouver's, that flexibility can be a real asset.
This deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about. What about you?
It has for me, too. What are your biggest takeaways?
What are your biggest takeaways from our exploration of the Vancouver housing market?
For me, it's the importance of staying informed and being adaptable.
Okay.
The market is constantly evolving, and those who are willing to adjust their strategies and seize opportunities are the ones who will thrive. Whether you're a seasoned investor or just starting to dip your toes into real estate knowledge is your most powerful tool.
Couldn't agree more. And speaking of knowledge, I want to give another shout out to Nesto.ca for providing the data and insights that made this deep dive possible.
Yes, they're great.
Their website is a treasure trove of information for anyone interested in the Canadian housing market.
They truly go above and beyond to make complex information accessible and empowering.
Yes.
Their mortgage experts are also a fantastic resource for those seeking personalized advice.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey into the Vancouver housing market.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
We hope you found it insightful, thought-provoking, and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
A little bit of inspiration.
Remember, whether you're buying, selling, renting, or simply observing real estate is a fascinating world, and we're here to help you navigate it.
We are, and if you're looking for more in-depth analysis or have questions specific to your situation, don't hesitate to reach out to us on social media. We're always happy to continue the conversation.
So until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring the ever-changing world of real estate happy house hunting.
See you next time.